Hey Bug, what type of animals do we like around here?
Built Homestead Tough.
Built Homestead Tough?
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, Bug is right about that. We like animals that are built homestead tough. So welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper. I thank you for joining me once again. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we wind up with some animals that are going to be hardier. So I'm going to talk about looking at specific breeds, and then looking at kind of the specific genetics within that breed, kind of what character traits the adults may have that they're going to be passing on to the next generation, and how being a little proactive in all of that, or a little more hands-off, is going to help you in the long run. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of poultry and then sheep. So dealing with some smaller animals and some larger ones. But as you begin to kind of either start a homesteading lifestyle or be more self-sufficient, having your own animals to take care of things like eggs or meat or milk, there's things that you can think about, and there's things that you can do that are going to help. Some real simple things are going to be to try to find ones that do best in your area. There's some longer haired animals, like maybe like the Highland cattle. They're not going to do as well in the deep south because of just how much hair they have. And then there's also going to be some other animals that maybe don't have much of a furry coat that aren't going to do as good up north in the winter. With certain chickens, sometimes smaller combed breeds are going to do better up north because there's less stuff sticking off there to get frostbite on. And just different things like that. Some of it too can come by trial and error, and sometimes you can even take something that shouldn't really be in your area and do rather well with it just by kind of starting with that and just having the best ones of each year reproduce and provide you the offspring for the next generation. I'm kind of thinking about plants and the stun method, which is sheer total utter neglect. Sheer total utter neglect. Stun. And there's people who will just plant a bunch of stuff, and whatever dies, dies, and if anything makes it, then that's the stuff that's going to provide the genetics for that next generation that you can harvest, you know, the seeds or the nuts or whatever it's going to be to carry on that next generation. It's kind of similar with things like this. So I'm going to have Pinkie-Pepper go over some stuff about chickens, and then I'm going to take a walk back to the sheep pen as well.
So right now the hen has her chicks underneath her, but normally throughout the day they'll be going everywhere through the ice and the snow. And they are pretty full of crops when they come into bed, and they're free range right now with their mom. They've been free range since they hatched, and they get pretty cold pretty fast, but their mom will just find a pretty dry spot to sit down, and then they'll all go under her, but they tolerate the cold pretty well. And then normally we wouldn't have chicks hatch around this time of the year, but she went broody. I'd been taking away her eggs, and I gave her 2 green gourds, and she was going broody on those. And so I just took her eggs that I've been collecting that were inside the house, and I gave them to her, and she went broody on 8 eggs, and then 6 chicks hatched. 1 hatched, but it died, and then we had 5 that hatched a few days later, and all of them lived, and they've had no problems so far.
So with chickens, I know these are sheep, but with chickens, you're going to want to have ones that have things like mothering instincts. You're going to want to have ones that can go broody on their eggs if your goal is not to have a bunch of time invested with incubators. If you want something to more run on its own and that they can just take care of it on their own, don't eat that, sheep. Without you having to spend the electricity or the effort to hatch out the next generation. And then of course, if you have to hatch them in an incubator and you're going to be taking care of your own chicks in a brooder, that's a lot more labor intensive than just simply allowing the mother to take care of it. So that's one thing that we like to look for.
And so a lot of people wouldn't have their baby chicks out here in this type of weather and environment. Even if it was warm outside, most people still like to give them a heat lamp, and some keep them in their house or inside barns or stuff. But these ones, they have their mom, and they've been out here since the day they hatched, and they're doing fine. So it's been about freezing temps ever since they hatched, and there's been a few snowstorms already, and they don't go far from the porch, which is where her nest is, when it's really cold outside. But then on warmer days, they'll go a bit further, and they'll go, and sometimes the turkeys will come over by the mama hen, and she'll try to scare them away. And normally they leave, and her babies will hide underneath her, but it's funny to see her protect them. And they do really well out here, but on some days and at the nights, you can hear them peeping underneath the hen.
In this instance too, one thing that we're going to be blessed with is that these are going to be super cold hardy. I would not personally expect to see chicks just running around on snow and ice, just because normally you associate it with springtime, the green grass, the flowers, things like that. Or if you have them at other times, they're just in the brooder. You have them somewhere indoors or under the heat lamp, and they're in the brooder. But to see this just kind of changes a few things in my mind, and some things too, like they're going to tell you exactly specific ways. Make sure to give them this medicated feed to begin with. Make sure to give them this. Add these drops to their water. Make sure to have a heat lamp. Make sure to have this. And the farther we get from how they naturally were or how they are in their original environment, the more and more kind of labor you're going to need to invest in them, because you're taking what the chicken was designed to be and turning it into something else where it's a dependent of yours. And chickens originally were like jungle birds too, so just like you might have saw the guinea fowl in my opening scene, those are birds from Africa. You wouldn't really think about them necessarily just running around in all sorts of, snow and ice and stuff like they do here. But those chickens, originally a jungle bird, can do the same thing.
And these chicks have been really cold tolerant, and they're doing fine out here. But we do have this one breed. I'm not exactly sure what kind of chicken it is. It's, I think it might be like a Boven Brown or something like that. But those chickens, they have not done well with the cold at all. Each year, we started off with a lot of Boven Browns, or those chickens, and then each year we lose some when it gets cold, and now we only have a few left. This year we already lost 2, and they're totally fine until it gets cold outside, and then they lose like all their weight, and they're like nothing but a skeleton, and then they just die. And I don't know why, but these chicks have been doing better than those big chickens. And then I've noticed some people that have a chicken coop, and inside the chicken coop, there's you can see, because it has windows, and you can see the chickens roosting there, and there's red coming from inside the chicken coop. And what it is, it should be, as far as I know, a red light heat lamp. And I was talking about it, and for those chickens, because they're having a heat lamp every year when it gets cold, even if it's not freezing outside, I've noticed that they've still had a heat lamp on. And those chickens, if the power goes out and it's really cold, they're not going to be able to tolerate the cold very well because they've had the heat lamp on them. And that's not going to be good for the chickens. Like our chickens and our poultry and stuff, they just go into their houses at night. And what we do in the winter to help keep them warmer is instead of cleaning out breaking out their pen, we just add more straw in it. And we'll go in the chicken pens at night sometimes into their houses. And it's really warm in there. It's a lot warmer than outside.
And one thing that I appreciate too, just like you can have certain mother animals or parent animals that can take really good care of the things, is we like to give our children a certain amount of jurisdiction over the animals, and they can tell us a lot. They can really develop relationships with them. They know when something's off. They know when things are going well. They know if somebody needs an extra dewormer ball and that type of stuff. So we really enjoy that with our children, that they have such a hands-on experience. There's a lot that they can learn, and there's so much of math and science and other things, you know, in their homeschool stuff that they can have a hands-on experience of and learn some stuff. I mean, Pinkie-Pepper has done quite well with a lot of genetics, you know. A lot of times children that old don't get very immersed in something like genetics, but by breeding the next generation, you learn about that stuff.
And we could baby the breeds of chickens that don't do well, but then we're gonna have to do that the rest of their lives and our lives if we still have any of those chickens. And so it's just better to let the ones that live through it. And then you'll get more eggs in the spring from them, and then when they die, and then you'll have no more after that.
And one thing you'll notice here too is that we're not very breed specific with our chickens right now. A lot of times specific chicken breeds are for specific reasons, and the further you get away from that, meaning the more stuff you breed into it, the more it kind of fizzles out and your egg production will go down or your size will go down. They won't get as big as quick or something like that. We're still just dabbling in this mixed multitude. There's a couple of breeds that per breed standard we like the best, but for now we're still just kind of playing around for a bit. I don't think we've suffered much with egg production. The birds that we harvest are worth harvesting, so we're still getting a byproduct of meat from them. But that's one thing to watch out for too. You may just want to stick to a specific breed that's going to do well in your area and talk to people who've been doing it for decades, you know, at least years, if not decades, in your area. What works best for them and why? Get a multitude of witnesses, you know, talk to a couple different people and see what they think, and then kind of narrow down your options. And then within a breed, say like Barred Rocks, for instance, within a breed, let your biggest, best males be the ones that you breed, that, you know, fertilize the eggs for the next ones to hatch out. Play around with it a bit, but you may just want to stick with the best of whatever you have in a breed. If you have a hen layer hen that's just laying eggs, and you got another one that's not very good at it, well, don't save the eggs, the fertilized eggs, from the one that doesn't lay a lot. Save the fertilized eggs from the one that lays a lot and pass those genetics on to your next generation.
So right now the chicks have, at least one of them just came out from under their mom, and let's go see how they're doing in the snow. And so as you can see, they're walking on the ice and the snow, and it's pretty cold out here. It's like 20 something, I think, right now, and they're not getting frostbite. They're not losing their toes. We've had some of our chickens that lost some of their toes before from the cold, and they're doing really good out here in the snow and the ice. And so these chicks hatched on the 13th of January, I believe. And right now it's the 26th of January, so they're only a few weeks old. And if we have them get used to the cold and the ice and stuff when they're little, they're gonna do much better with it when they're bigger, and it's just gonna be easier for them. All right, I'll show you one right now, or a few of them. So here's two of them. Whoa. And they're just as healthy and happy as the other chicks would be. They're probably happier, actually. And look at its crop right there. And so these ones free range, and they eat a lot more from the wild than most of the other chickens would. And I don't feed them really a lot of the actual chicken feed. I just give them some oats, and they do get a little bit of chicken feed, but they mainly aren't eating chicken feed. And I've raised chicks up on no chicken feed also, and they were fine. Like their mom, she wasn't raised very much on feed at all, and she's doing really good.
Are they cold when you grab them?
No, they're really warm, even if they've been out here for a while. Today is a pretty cold day, and so we're leaving the sheep at the barn so they can be warmer, because if we did take them out to the pasture, there's not much to eat, and it's a really cold day, and most of them have been enjoying staying in the barn today. And we like to get breeds that are pretty cold hardy sheep breeds, and so they tolerate the cold pretty well.
So with our sheep, with our sheep too, we like to choose unimproved breeds. Unimproved breeds are the ones that have more natural tendencies versus like commercial breeds. Commercial breeds are going to be put out there to either put out a lot of wool or a lot of meat or something like that. And a lot of times they got to be raised in a certain environment that would not be like the woods and the pastures and the wild. Also, we try to be rather hands-off with the whole process. We like ones that can birth well on their own, that have good mothering instincts, that nurse their own babies so we don't wind up with a bunch of bottle babies. I don't think we've ever had a bottle baby sheep. We have assisted at least in 2 births though, one with one of our Shetland Finns and one with one of our Jacob sheep. So those are both going to be unimproved breeds. That one there is half Shetland Finn, half Jacob. This one here is just a Shetland Finn. And then we've got a lot of the black and white ones with horns. Those are the Jacob sheep. And even the ewes can have 2, 4, or 6 horns. We like them because they're kind of a mid-sized one too. If you look at Shetland Finn, Finn from Finland, Shetland from the Shetland Islands off the coast of Scotland, you're dealing with some harsh, rugged environments. So you got these mid-sized sheep that don't get incredibly huge, but they're not tiny. And they get some good coats of wool. And then the Jacob sheep are another unimproved breed, so where they're pretty natural. They do it pretty well on their own. Last, I think it was February, I spent the night in a really cold, freezing night out here when Flower, come here Flower, can you come here? She's not coming in right now, but when she was going to give birth, and I just kind of hung out that night in the barn, and I wound up assisting with it, which was pretty good. But with ours, we picked up a couple of subpar flocks, where some of the ewes didn't have any horns, some of the males didn't have the best genetics. So there's like a breed standard where you want about 60% light on the Jacob sheep, 40% dark. You want black eyes, black muzzle, a lot of times black socks on them as well. And then you're going to want 4 horns generally. You can get 2, 4, or 6, and sometimes even if you got 3 horns on each side, so they'd be a 6-horn sheep, they'll just grow together into 2 as they grow out. So we've been trying to breed back to more of a breed standard for genetics, but also we're letting the hardy ones and the tough ones be the ones that reproduce. This is a whole cluster of little ewes here with horns on their head now, as we've been breeding back to a breed standard with them.
And then the cold does help kill off some of the parasites, and I do make sure to deworm them all year round, and we just deworm our sheep and our animals with herbs and different herbs and stuff. And yesterday night I made some dewormer balls, and we give them to our dogs, and then our cow, and our pony doesn't like to eat them, but our sheep eat them. And hopefully in the future, either me or Mama Pepper will make a video on how we make the dewormer balls.
But the sickly ones and ones that aren't going to, do very good, we don't try to baby them. There was one little ram this year, or last year, that was born, and he kind of always was just kind of not doing so good. So we did some, things, but we're not going to go with a bunch of harsh chemical dewormers and stuff like that. We just try to provide them with more natural things, and then also have things like, stinging nettle, or cedar, or yarrow, or just different stuff like that available to them in their pastures, that they can kind of do a degree of self medication, or even like a kind of self-parasite stuff. A lot of times they know if there's something they need, and if they have open access to that, then they're going to be able to do that.
Last year we had some lambs in late January and early February, all the way till about, I think till like March, and then some may have had theirs. I don't think they had any after that. But that's normally when our lambs are born. And it's in the cold normally. So
the sheep, we got some pretty tough ones. They will go out in the middle of, a snowstorm in the night and go birth out there sometimes. If we know some are going to come and that's pretty bad weather, sometimes we'll keep them in here, add an little bit of extra straw or something to help it be a little warmer in here, and then just, make sure that they're in this type of environment just to bless the babies a bit. But there's so many hot, steaming babies that come out in the winter. And some people would want their lambs to be born more in the spring when you've got the green grass on the ground and stuff like that. But the babies don't really need to eat green grass. They've got a while where their moms are going to be providing the vast majority of what they need just from their mother's milk. So, that'll give the pastures time to, come in when they need that, rather than right away when they really don't need that. So we like them, but again, just periodically giving them some dewormers. These ones do really good with the hooves too. I don't do a lot of hoof maintenance on them, and we chose sheep over goats because we had both, and these just seem a lot hardier than a lot of the goats that we had. The goats seem to come down a lot more often. If I was going with some meat goats, I would definitely go with some Kiko or something, and if I was going to go with something for milk, I'd probably get into Nigerian dwarfs or something like that. But right now we're just going to stick with these and primarily focus on the Jacob sheep breed. I'll show you guys a look at these ladies here. That one there actually had 6 horns when she was born. They just grew together into 2. Ultimately with these sheep, we want them to be a blessing for us. And if a lot of our time is spent in just kind of babying them and making sure that, you know, they're staying alive because they could die any given day of the week, or if a lot of our money is spent on special feeds or medication or things like that, they're just not going to be the blessing that they can be. Right now we do use them for wool. We also eat them for meat. When we eat them for meat, I like to tan the hides, and they also, my children milk them, you know. It's come to this. They milk the sheep. And we know other people who do as well, but they are a mammal that gives milk to its babies, and my children enjoy just kind of interacting with animals and figuring things out. So they like milking these sheep, and we like having the milk from them when it's that time of year. So the more investment I have in them, the harder it's going to be for them to be a blessing to us. So the more unimproved and kind of just natural they can take care of themselves and do their own thing, the better that's going to be for us. And that's the way that we like to have it. So these are just the sheep, and that works better for us. You know, everyone can make their own decisions. If there's a breed you really like or something you're really looking for, and it's going to take you, you know, a lot of dewormers from the vet, and it's going to take you a lot of other things, that's fine. If you're going to have heat lamps or something in your barn for when they're getting born, you can. We've actually done that before. But also remember that a lot of buildings are lost each year because of heat lamps and stuff like that. And it's a little easier for a sheep or a larger animal to knock over your heat lamp than it would be for a chicken. But boy, I've seen barns before, and I've seen the burnt crispy, you know, remnants of it after, when they were running heat lamps to try to keep some sort of animal warm. And the next thing you know, it cost them their whole barn, and sometimes even the animals. You know, thankfully sometimes the animals escape, but that's not always the case, where you could not only lose the animals you were trying to keep alive, but the entire structure you had them in just by running a heat lamp. So be careful. Well, I hope you guys learned at least a couple things, or maybe it was just fun for you to watch. I'm surprised these guys are just sitting here to be my backdrop for this. These are the 4-horn Jacob sheep males. We really like them. Dodge is farther over, and his son Jacob's on this side. Jacob is now 2 years old, and he's about as big as his 4-year-old daddy. And I think his dad's struggling with that because they butt heads a lot, literally. But if there's other advice or tips or stuff pertaining to the subject matter of this one, just kind of how to have better, tougher, hardier homestead animals, feel free to leave your own thoughts or comments in the comment section below. That way not only can it be stuff for us to think about and learn, but anyone else who happens down there. So we appreciate you guys watching it. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Papa out.